While cleaning the bedroom, I found a tube of lubricant hidden in my wife's drawer. We hadn't been intimate for 2 years yet. That tube was half empty. In that moment, I realized I'd been betrayed in the very home I had built. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell or demand answers. I simply replaced it with rat glue and waited. An hour later, the cries for help destroyed their lives forever. Before we continue, please support the channel by liking this video and subscribing for more meaningful stories like this. Drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. Your engagement truly helps these stories reach more people. Note some elements are fictionalized for storytelling purposes, but I hope the message stays with you. The house was too quiet. I sat in the dark living room, the only light coming from the street lamp outside filtering through the curtains. In my hand was my father's old pocket watch, the brass worn smooth from decades of being passed from his calloused fingers to mine. I wasn't checking the time. I already knew it was late. I was holding it because it was the only thing that felt solid anymore. 10:30 rolled into 11, then 11:15. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked on each second, stretching longer than the last. Monica was supposed to be home by 9. She'd said something about meeting an old client, someone who needed help with their books. She used to do bookkeeping for Lawson & Sons before we got big enough to hire a full accounting team. Nowadays, she only took on a few private clients here and there just to keep busy, or so she said. I rubbed my thumb over the smooth face of the watch. My father gave it to me the day I started the company 38 years ago. Back then, it was just me, a beat-up truck, and a toolbox. Now Lawson & Sons Construction employed 52 people and pulled in $12 million a year. I'd built that company the same way I built this house, board by board, nail by nail, with my own 2 hands. This house. 2 stories of craftsman-style beauty, every joint fitted, every beam chosen. I designed it myself back when Monica was pregnant with Leora. I remember standing in this very spot, sawdust in my hair, Monica laughing as she held up paint samples. She wanted sage green for the kitchen. I wanted her to be happy. We went with sage green. That was 32 years ago, a lifetime. Headlights swept across the window. I didn't move. Didn't stand up to greet her like I usually would. I just sat there in the dark, the pocket watch heavy in my palm, and listened. The car door shut. Heels clicked on the walkway, sharp, quick. Monica didn't usually wear heels on a weeknight. The key scraped in the lock. The door opened, and there she was, silhouetted in the doorway, pulling off her coat. She didn't see me at first. She hummed softly, something I didn't recognize, as she set her purse on the entryway table and slipped off her shoes. Then she turned toward the living room and froze. "Trevor." Her hand flew to her chest. "You scared me. What are you doing sitting in the dark?" I clicked on the lamp beside me. The warm light filled the room, and I got a good look at her. She was wearing a black cocktail dress. Not the comfortable jeans and sweater she'd left in that morning. Not the practical slacks she wore to client meetings. A dress. Her hair was styled makeup, fresh. And there was a scent clinging to her that wasn't the perfume I'd bought her last Christmas. "Long meeting," I said. My voice came out flat. She laughed a little too bright. "Oh, you know how Mrs. Patterson is. She just talks and talks. I couldn't get away." Mrs. Patterson. I knew Mrs. Patterson. She was 74 and went to bed at 8:30 every night without fail. "Right," I said. I stood up, slowly slipping the pocket watch into my pocket. "I'm heading to bed. Long day tomorrow." Monica smiled, relief flickering across her face. "I'll be up in a minute. Just need to grab some water." I nodded and walked past her toward the stairs. But I didn't go up. I waited in the hallway just out of sight, listening to the sounds of her moving through the kitchen. The fridge opening. Ice clinking in a glass. Then the soft rustle of fabric. She'd left her purse on the table. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the dress. Maybe it was the perfume. Maybe it was the way she'd lied so easily, so smoothly, like she'd done it 100 times before. I moved quietly, my footsteps silent on the hardwood I'd laid myself. Her purse sat there unzipped. I reached inside. The first thing I found was a receipt. Riverside Inn, $287. Dated today, check-in time 3 p.m. My hand tightened around the paper. I kept digging. Lipstick, wallet, keys. And then at the bottom, tucked inside a makeup bag, a piece of red lace. I pulled it out slowly. Lingerie, brand new tags still attached. Size small. Monica hadn't worn a size small in 20 years. The world tilted. I stood there holding that scrap of lace and felt something crack open inside my chest. 38 years. 38 years of building a life together, raising our daughter, working side by side. I'd built her a home. I'd given her everything, and she'd bought lingerie for someone else. Footsteps on the stairs. I shoved everything back into her purse and moved quickly, slipping into the downstairs bathroom and closing the door. I heard her pause at the top of the stairs. "Now, Trevor, are you coming up?" I waited. 10 seconds, 20. Then I flushed the toilet and ran the water, buying myself time to breathe. "Yeah," I called back. "Be right there." By the time I climbed the stairs, Monica was already in bed, her back to me, the blanket pulled up to her shoulders. I stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at her. The woman I'd loved for nearly 4 decades. The woman who'd stood beside me through every struggle, every triumph. Who was she now? I undressed slowly, folding my clothes, setting the pocket watch on the nightstand, like I did every night. Then I slid into bed beside her. The mattress dipped under my weight. She didn't stir. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. In, out. Slow and steady. Peaceful. My mind raced. The receipt, the lingerie, the dress, the perfume that wasn't hers. How long had she been lying to me? How many nights had she come home late with a story I'd believed because I trusted her? How many times had she looked me in the eye and smiled while hiding secrets? I thought about confronting her. Right now. Waking her up and demanding answers. But something stopped me. If I confronted her now, she'd lie. She'd cover her tracks. She'd make me look like the fool who couldn't see what was right in front of him. No, I needed to know everything first. I needed proof. I needed to see the full picture before I made a move. I rolled onto my side away from her and closed my eyes. But I didn't sleep. Somewhere in the house, the grandfather clock chimed midnight. And in the darkness, with my wife's steady breathing beside me, I made a decision. I was going to find out the whole story. Every lie, every betrayal, every detail. And then I was going to make sure she never saw it coming. The smell of pancakes filled the kitchen, buttery and sweet, just the way Monica liked them. I stood at the stove, flipping each one with practiced ease, watching the golden edges crisp up. The coffee maker gurgled on the counter. Everything looked normal, peaceful, like any other Friday morning in 38 years of marriage. But my hands weren't steady. Monica came downstairs at 7:15, already dressed in slacks and a blazer. She kissed my cheek as she passed, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. "Yeah, you're up early," she said, pouring herself coffee. Feeling okay, I slid 2 pancakes onto a plate and set it in front of her. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd make breakfast." She smiled, the same smile that used to make my chest warm. Now it just made me cold. "You're sweet," she said, cutting into the stack. "I've got to run soon, though. Meeting a client at 9. Another client. Another meeting." I sat down across from her with my own plate, though I had no appetite. "Anyone I know?" "Oh, just someone from the old days. Needs help sorting through tax documents." She waved her fork dismissively. "Boring stuff." I nodded, sipping my coffee. Watched her eat. Watched her check her phone twice. Watched her glance at the clock like she couldn't wait to leave. By 7:40, she was out the door. I stood at the window, and watched her car disappear down the street. Then I picked up my phone and texted my foreman, not feeling well. Taking the day, you've got the crew. His reply came fast. No problem, boss. Feel better. I wasn't going to feel better, not anytime soon. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom. Monica had made the bed before she left the corners tucked tight like always. We'd shared that bed for decades. I'd held her through nightmares, through grief, through Leora's teenage years when we were both exhausted and scared. Now I was about to tear through her things like a stranger. I started with her dresser. Top drawer, nothing. Second drawer, scarves and old jewelry. Third drawer, beneath a stack of sweaters, I found a shoebox. Inside were receipts, dozens of them. I spread them across the bed like evidence at a crime scene. 8 hotel receipts from different places within 50 miles. Riverside Inn, the Grandview, Maple Suites. Dates going back 4 months. Total $2,400. 4 receipts from the Wellington Steakhouse. $180 each. Always 2 entrees. Always a bottle of wine. A receipt from a boutique I didn't recognize. $385. Lingerie. And tucked at the bottom a small bag from a men's cologne shop. $220. The brand wasn't mine. My chest tightened. I pulled out my phone and logged into our joint bank account. Scrolled through 6 months of transactions. There it was, buried among grocery runs and utility bills. Cash withdrawals, $500 here, $800 there, week after week. $15,000, gone. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, staring at the numbers on the screen. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was calculated. Deliberate. She'd been planning this for months. I needed help. I scrolled through my contacts and hit Warren's number. He picked up on the second ring. "Trevor, what's up?" "Warren." My voice sounded rough. "I need to talk. Can you meet me?" "Everything okay?" "No. I'll be at your place in 20. Warren Blackwood had been my business partner for 30 years. He was my COO, my right hand, and one of the few people I trusted completely. He showed up in his truck still wearing his work boots. I let him in and poured him coffee without asking. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Monica had eaten pancakes an hour ago. "Talk to me," Warren said. So I did. I told him about the receipts, the hotels, the money, the red lace. When I finished, Warren was quiet for a long time. "I'm sorry, Trevor. You knew something, didn't you?" He rubbed his face. "I saw her last Tuesday at that coffee place downtown, around 2 in the afternoon. She was sitting with some guy. Younger. Mid-30s, maybe. They were laughing real close. I thought maybe it was work, but now. What did he look like? Tall, blonde hair, wore a suit, looked like money." My jaw tightened. I need to know everything. Who he is. How long this has been going on. Warren nodded slowly. "You need a professional. Vincent Harper. Used to be a cop, retired 5 years ago, runs his own PI firm now. He's good, discreet. By noon, I was sitting in Vincent Harper's office downtown. The place was small but clean, with filing cabinets lining one wall and a desk cluttered with case files. Vincent himself was a solid man, in his late 40s, graying at the temples with calm, assessing eyes. He listened while I laid out everything, the receipts, the cash, the coffee shop sighting. He took notes, nodding occasionally, his expression never changing. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "I can help you," he said. "Surveillance, documentation. $1,500 up front plus $125 an hour for active field work. Might take a couple weeks." "I don't care what it costs," I said. "I need to know," Vincent nodded. "Then we've got a deal." I signed the contract. Gave him a photo of Monica. Told him her schedule, the places she went, the car she drove. When we were done, he pulled out a cheap flip phone and slid it across the desk. "Keep this with you," he said. "When I have something, I'll contact this number. Don't use it for anything else, and don't tell anyone you have it. I picked up the phone. It felt like holding a live grenade. How soon? I asked. Could be days. Could be a week. Depends on her patterns. Vincent stood and shook my hand. I'll be in touch. I walked out into the bright afternoon sun, the burner phone heavy in my pocket. Then I drove home to wait. The sound of a table saw cut through the air, sharp and clean. I stood in the middle of what used to be the cafeteria of Millbrook Elementary, clipboard in hand, watching my crew frame out the new walls. This project was a big one, $340,000, to turn the old school into a community center. We were ahead of schedule and the work was good. Solid. I liked being on site. Liked the smell of sawdust and fresh lumber, the rhythm of hammers. Out here, things made sense. You measure twice, cut once, and if you do it right, it holds. If only the rest of life worked that way. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Not my regular phone. The other one. I stepped outside into the parking lot away from the noise. The afternoon sun was bright hot on my neck. I pulled out the burner and stared at the screen. One new message. Vincent Harper. My thumb hovered over the notification. Part of me didn't want to open it. Once I saw what was inside, there'd be no going back. I opened it. 4 photos loaded one by one, slow and deliberate. I wasn't prepared. The first photo showed a parking lot. I recognized it immediately. Riverside Inn. In the frame were 2 people standing beside a dark sedan. A woman with brown hair wearing a cream-colored blouse. A man taller, younger blonde hair, slicked back wearing a gray suit. They were kissing. Not a peck on the cheek. A real kiss. The kind that said everything. I stared at Monica's face tilted up toward him, her hand resting on his chest. The second photo was worse. Same angle a moment later. Her hand had moved to the back of his neck, pulling him closer. His hand was on her waist. They looked like they'd done this 100 times before. The third photo showed them walking toward the entrance of the inn, fingers laced together. Monica was smiling. I couldn't remember the last time she'd smiled at me like that. I almost didn't look at the fourth photo. My hand was shaking so hard, I nearly dropped the phone. But I looked. This one was a close-up. A clear shot of the man's face as he turned toward the camera keys in hand, laughing at something Monica had said. Blonde hair, blue eyes, sharp jawline, mid-30s maybe, and I knew him. My stomach dropped like I'd stepped off a ledge. Desmond Clark, my son-in-law. The man married to my daughter? The phone slipped from my hand and hit the asphalt. I just stood there staring at nothing, trying to breathe. Desmond. The man who'd sat at my dinner table every Sunday for the past 2 years. The man who called me sir and shook my hand and kissed my daughter goodnight. The man I'd trusted with Leora's happiness. And he'd been sleeping with my wife. My vision blurred. Blood roared in my ears. I bent down and grabbed the phone with shaking hands, scrolling to the message beneath the photos. Vincent's text was short and clinical. Subject confirmed. Desmond Clark, age 34, married to your daughter, Leora Lawson Clark, age 32. Financial advisor at Harmon and Associates. Relationship with Monica Lawson observed 4 times in the past week. Surveillance continuing. More to follow. 4 times in 1 week. I leaned against the side of my truck, gripping the edge of the bed to steady myself. Around me, the world kept moving. Cars passed on the street. Inside the building, the saw screamed on, but I couldn't move. Leora. Oh God, Leora, my little girl. 32 years old now. But I still remembered the day she was born, how small she'd been in my arms. How I'd promised her I'd always keep her safe. I'd walked her down the aisle 2.5 years ago, handed her over to Desmond, told him to take care of her. And he'd done this. My hands curled into fists. I wanted to put them through something. Through Desmond's face. Through the windshield of his car. But I couldn't. Not yet. I forced myself to breathe. Then I pulled up Warren's number and hit call. He answered on the first ring. Trevor, it's Desmond. My voice came out hoarse, broken. It's my son-in-law. There was a long silence on the other end. "Ah, Jesus Christ," Warren finally said. "I just got the photos. Vincent sent them. It's him. It's been him this whole time." "Where are you?" "The school site." "Stay there, I'm coming." "No, I'm coming to you." "I can't be here right now." My voice cracked. "Okay," Warren said quietly. "Come to my place. I'll be here." I hung up and climbed into my truck. Didn't tell my foreman I was leaving. Didn't call Monica. Just gripped the steering wheel and drove. I passed my own street without stopping. Kept going until I pulled into Warren's driveway and killed the engine. Warren was already on the porch waiting. I got out and walked toward him. For the first time since this all started, I said it out loud. "She's been sleeping with Leora's husband." Warren's face went hard. "Come inside." I followed him into the kitchen, where we'd sat just days ago when this was only suspicion. Now it was real. Now it had a name and a face. Warren poured me a glass of water. I didn't drink it. "Oh, what are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know. You can't confront them yet. Not until you know the whole story. If you go in there now, they'll cover their tracks. And this isn't just about Monica anymore. This is about Leora. She's married to him. She loves him. If you blow this up without proof, without a plan, she's the one who's going to get hurt the most." I closed my eyes. He was right. Leora didn't know. She had no idea her husband was betraying her, that her mother was betraying all of us. Warren leaned forward. "You need more than photos, Trevor. You need to know how deep this goes, how long it's been happening, if there's money involved, if they're planning something. Planning what? I don't know, but people who cheat don't usually stop there." I looked at him. "You think they're after something? I think you need to find out." I stared at Desmond's face on the screen. 34 years old, financial advisor, access to my company records through Monica, who used to do our books, access to Leora's trust fund, access to everything. Warren was right. This was bigger than an affair. I needed a plan. To protect Leora, to protect everything I'd built, and I needed to do it without them knowing I was coming. Warren poured 2 fingers of bourbon into each glass without asking if I wanted any. We sat across from each other in his living room, the only light coming from a lamp in the corner. Outside, the sky had gone dark. Inside, neither of us had spoken in 5 minutes. I stared at the amber liquid in my glass, watching it catch the light. My hands had finally stopped shaking, but my chest still felt like someone had driven a spike through it. Warren took a slow sip, then set his glass down. 15 years ago, he said quietly, my wife had an affair. I looked up. Her name was Caroline. We'd been married 22 years. I thought we were solid. Happy even. He leaned back in his chair, his face lined and tired. I found out by accident. Saw a text on her phone. I confronted her that same night. Demanded answers. Told her to pack her bags. He paused, rubbing his jaw. Biggest mistake I ever made. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, I acted on emotion instead of strategy. I didn't have proof beyond that one text. I didn't know how long it had been going on, who the guy was, whether she'd been hiding money. I just exploded, and she was ready for it. She had a lawyer by morning. Took the house 60% of the business primary custody of our daughter. By the time the dust settled, I'd lost everything that mattered. He picked up his glass again, swirling the bourbon. Because I moved too fast. Because I didn't have everything lined up before I pulled the trigger. I felt something cold settle in my gut. So what are you saying? Warren met my eyes. I'm saying don't make my mistake. Don't move until you have everything. Evidence. Money trail. Witnesses. Know every lie they've told, every move they've made. Then you strike once hard and you take it all. I sat back, letting his words sink in. He was right. If I went home tonight and confronted Monica, What would happen? She'd deny it. Desmond would deny it. They'd destroy evidence, close accounts, lawyer up, and I'd be left with nothing but 4 photos and a broken marriage. Worse, Leora would be caught in the middle. She'd have to choose between believing her father or her husband. And without undeniable proof, I'd look like the paranoid old man tearing the family apart. No, I needed more than photos. I needed everything. So what do? I asked. Warren leaned forward, elbows on his knees. First, Vincent keeps digging. Photos aren't enough. You need video, audio if possible. You need to know how often they're meeting, where, when. Build a timeline. Make it impossible to deny. I nodded. Second, you go through your finances with a fine-tooth comb. Company accounts, joint accounts, property, retirement. If Monica has access to any of it, you need to know what she's been doing. Check for transfers, withdrawals, anything unusual. Same with Desmond. If he's a financial advisor, he knows how to move money. Find out if he's been moving yours. My jaw tightened. I hadn't even thought about that. Third, Warren continued, you keep your mouth shut. You don't tell anyone. Not Leora, not your foreman, not your secretary, no one. You go to work every day like nothing's wrong. You come home and kiss Monica on the cheek. You smile at Desmond at Sunday dinner. You act like everything's fine until you're ready to burn it all down. I stared at him. You want me to pretend? Goody, I want you to survive this, Warren said flatly. And the only way you do that is if they never see you coming. I picked up my glass and drank. The bourbon burned going down, but it felt good. Grounding. Warren was right about all of it. If I wanted to protect Leora, if I wanted to protect everything I'd built, I had to be smarter than them. Colder, more patient. What about Leora? I asked. When do I tell her? Warren's face softened. Not until you have proof she can't deny. If you tell her now, she'll confront Desmond. He'll lie. She'll believe him because she loves him. And then you've lost her. I closed my eyes. The thought of keeping this from my daughter felt like swallowing glass. But he was right. Okay, I said. I'll wait. Warren nodded. Good. Now go home. Act normal. And let Vincent do his job. I finished my drink and stood. Warren walked me to the door, clapped a hand on my shoulder. You're going to get through this, Trevor. But you've got to be smart. I know. I drove home through empty streets, rehearsing what I'd say when I walked in. Something casual. Something believable. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I had my mask on. Monica was in the kitchen when I came through the door, putting away dishes. She turned, smiled. There you are. I was starting to worry. I set my keys on the counter, keeping my voice easy. Sorry. Got tied up with Warren going over the school project. Lost track of time. She dried her hands on a towel. Everything okay? Yeah, just details. She studied me for a second, and I wondered if she could see through me. If she knew, but then she just nodded. Well, I'm glad you're home. Leora called earlier. I told her you'd call back. I'll do that now. I went upstairs to the bedroom, closed the door, and dialed Leora's number. She picked up on the second ring, her voice bright and warm. Hey, Dad. Hey, sweetheart, your mom said you called. Just checking in. Feels like I haven't talked to you in forever. I know, work's been crazy. Tell me about it. Desmond's been putting in late nights, too. I think tax season's killing him. I sat down on the edge of the bed, gripping the phone tighter. Late nights. Yeah, I managed. Busy time of year. Anyway, I just wanted to say hi. Love you, Dad. Love you too, Leora. I hung up and sat there staring at the wall. He's not working late, I thought. He's not at the office. He's with your mother, and you have no idea. Downstairs, I heard Monica moving around, turning off lights, locking doors. A few minutes later, she came upstairs, changed into her pajamas, and slipped into bed beside me. Good night, she murmured, already half asleep. I didn't answer. I lay there in the dark. listening to her breathing slow and even out. Then I reached for the burner phone on the nightstand and pulled up the photos Vincent had sent. 4 images. Monica and Desmond. Kissing. Holding hands. Walking into that hotel together. I stared at them until my eyes burned. Then I closed the phone and set it back down. Not today, I thought. But soon I'd make them both pay. Pamela looked up from her desk. When I walked into the office, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Morning, Mr. Lawson. You're in early. I forced a smile. Got some paperwork to catch up on. Can you pull the financials for me, everything from the last 2 years? Excel files and hard copies. She blinked, surprised. All of it? All of it. Okay, give me 20 minutes. I went to my office and closed the door. Sat down at my desk and stared at the framed photo on the wall. Me and Monica at the groundbreaking for our first major project 35 years ago. We were young then, smiling. I turned the frame face down. 20 minutes later, Pamela knocked and came in with her arms full. 2 thick binders and a thumb drive. Well, here you go. Company accounts, payroll, vendor invoices, everything. Thanks, Pamela. She hesitated at the door. Everything okay? Fine, just routine. She left. I waited until I heard her footsteps fade, then I locked the door. I opened the first binder and started at the beginning. For the first hour, everything looked normal. Payroll matched expectations. Vendor invoices for lumber, steel equipment rentals, all legitimate. Insurance premiums, utilities, the usual overhead. Then I hit month 18. A line item caught my eye. Financial consulting services, Harmon and Associates, $3,200. I frowned. I didn't remember approving that. We didn't use outside financial consultants. We had an in-house accountant. I flipped the page. Another invoice. Harmon and Associates, $2,800. And another, $3,100. I went back through the binder, highlighting every entry. By the time I finished, I'd found 23 invoices, all from Harmon and Associates, all approved and paid. Total $47,000. My jaw tightened. Harmon and Associates was Desmond's firm. I plugged the thumb drive into my computer and opened the Excel file. They were all there, dated over the past 18 months. Each one had a scanned approval form attached, with my signature on it, except I'd never signed them. I zoomed in on the signature. It looked close. But the T in Trevor was wrong. Too sharp. And the loop in the L of Lawson didn't close all the way. Small details most people wouldn't notice, but I would. I'd been signing my name for 63 years. This wasn't my signature. I sat back, breathing hard. Monica had access to the company accounts. She'd worked as our bookkeeper for years before we hired someone full-time. She still had login credentials. Still knew the system inside and out. She'd forged my signature. Paid Desmond's company $47,000 for services we never received. I kept digging. Next, I found checks. 8 of them written to subcontractors I didn't recognize. J&L Masonry, Apex Plumbing, Redwood Framing. Each one between $3,000 and $5,000. I cross-referenced the names with our project records. None of them had ever worked for us. I Googled each company. Nothing. No websites, no business listings, no phone numbers. They didn't exist. 8 fake checks. $28,000. All signed with my forged signature. I felt my hands curl into fists. Then I found the transfer. June 14th. A wire transfer from our primary operating account to an account in the Cayman Islands. $125,000. The authorization form had Monica's name on it, her login credentials, her digital signature. She'd moved $125,000 out of our company and into an offshore account I'd never heard of. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. She hadn't just been hiding an affair. She'd been stealing, systematically, for over a year. But there was more. At the bottom of the second binder, tucked into a plastic sleeve, was a contract I didn't recognize. I pulled it out and read the header. Stock transfer agreement. My blood went cold. The document stated that I, Trevor Lawson, was transferring 40% ownership of Lawson & Sons Construction to Monica Lawson effective July 15th of this year, in exchange for her years of service and partnership in building the company. At the bottom was my signature, forged. I checked the date. July 15th, 2 months ago. If this document was legally filed, Monica now owned 40% of my company. 40% of $8.5 million. $3.4 million. And I'd never signed it. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of everything. Every invoice, every check, every transfer, the forged contract. I sent them all to Vincent and Warren in a single message. Then I called my attorney. He picked up on the third ring. Trevor, what's going on? I need advice, fast. I laid it all out. The affair, the forged signatures, the offshore transfer, the stock agreement. He was quiet for a long moment. This is fraud, Trevor, embezzlement, forgery. You need to go to the police. Not yet, Trevor. I need more. If I go to the cops now, they'll arrest her, sure. But Desmond's a financial advisor. He'll have covered his tracks. I need to know everything before I move. I need proof that ties him to this, not just her. My attorney sighed. Then get me copies of everything. I'll start building the case, but don't wait too long. The longer this goes on, the more they can hide. I won't. I hung up and sat there staring at the documents spread across my desk. $47,000 in fake consulting fees, $28,000 in fake checks, $125,000 wired offshore, 40% of my company stolen with a forged signature, total damage $200,000 in cash, $3.4 million in equity. This wasn't just an affair. They weren't just sleeping together. They were stealing my company. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting. I could see the company sign from here. Lawson & Sons Construction. Established 1986. I'd built that company from nothing. I'd poured 38 years of sweat and blood into it. And Monica and Desmond thought they could just take it. I pressed my hand against the glass, my reflection staring back at me. They'd underestimated me. They thought I'd never notice. Thought I was too busy, too trusting, too old to see what they were doing. They were wrong. I turned away from the window and looked at the documents on my desk. Evidence, proof, ammunition. They wanted to take everything I'd built. Fine. I'd take everything from them instead. My phone rang at 7 in the morning. I was in the kitchen staring at a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. Monica had already left for her morning yoga class. Or so she'd said. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. The burner, I answered. Yeah, Vincent's voice came through low and urgent. I've got something. You need to hear this. Meet me at the diner on Route 9 in 30 minutes. What is it? Not over the phone. Just come. He hung up. I grabbed my keys and left. The diner was one of those old roadside places with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who'd been working there since the 80s. At this hour, it was nearly empty. Just a trucker at the counter and Vincent sitting in the back corner booth, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. I slid in across from him. He didn't waste time. He pulled a pair of headphones from his jacket pocket and set them on the table between us. I installed an audio device in Monica's car 3 days ago, he said quietly. You're the registered owner, so it's legal. You gave consent. I stared at the headphones. What did you find? Just listen. He pushed his phone across the table. I picked up the headphones, put them on, and hit play. At first, there was just the sound of a car engine. Road noise. Then Monica's voice clear as day. I talked to my lawyer. A pause. Then Desmond's voice smoother, calmer. And if Trevor passes, I inherit everything. The company, the house, the life insurance policy, $2 million. My stomach dropped. We can't wait forever, Monica. He's 63 and healthy as an ox. We need to speed this up. I heard Monica sigh. What are you suggesting? An accident. Desmond's tone didn't change. Casual, like he was talking about the weather. Construction sites are dangerous places. Scaffolding collapses. Equipment malfunctions. No one would question it. Silence. Long enough that I thought the recording had stopped. Then Monica spoke. And how soon? I ripped the headphones off. Vincent was watching me, his face grim. There's more. I didn't want to hear more, but I put the headphones back on. The recording picked up again 15 minutes later based on the timestamp. They were still in the car. Desmond was talking. Once he's gone, we liquidate the company. Take the $8.5 million and disappear. Start over somewhere warm. Maybe the Caribbean. Leora will get over it eventually. She's weak, just like her father. Monica laughed. Actually laughed. She doesn't even suspect. Last Sunday at dinner, she asked me if we were okay. I told her we were planning a second honeymoon. You're one hell of an actress, babe. The recording ended. I sat there gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. The diner sounds around me faded into nothing. All I could hear was Monica's voice in my head. How soon? She'd asked how soon they could arrange my accident. Vincent pulled the headphones back and tucked them away. That's conspiracy to cause serious harm, Trevor. Maybe worse. You need to take this to the police, right now. I shook my head. Trevor. No. My voice came out hoarse. I cleared my throat and tried again. If I go to the cops now, they'll arrest them. Maybe. But Desmond's got money. He'll post bail. They'll destroy evidence. Lawyer up. And it'll turn into a he said, she said nightmare. You have a recording. Of them talking. Not acting. A good lawyer will argue it was just talk. Fantasy. Venting. I leaned forward. And even if it sticks, Leora will be caught in the middle. Her mother arrested, her husband arrested, and she'll blame me for tearing her family apart. Vincent's jaw tightened. So what do you want to do? I want to catch them in the act. In the act of what sabotaging a job site, that's a good way to get yourself hurt, or worse. I'm not going to let them hurt me. I met his eyes. But I need to know when they're planning to move. I need more recordings, more proof. I need to know their timeline so I can be ready. Vincent studied me for a long moment. You're playing a dangerous game. They started the game. I'm just finishing it. He sighed and pulled out a notebook. Fine. I'll keep the device active. I'll monitor it daily. If I hear anything about timing or specific plans, I'll contact you immediately. But Trevor, if this escalates, if I think you're in real danger, I'm going to the police myself. Understood. Understood. He closed the notebook. 2 weeks. That's all I'm giving you. After that, we take this to the authorities, whether you like it or not. 2 weeks is enough. We shook hands. I left cash on the table for a coffee I didn't drink and walked out into the bright morning sunlight. My truck was the only vehicle in the far corner of the lot. I got in, closed the door, and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel. Then I pulled out the burner phone, opened Vincent's message, and played the recording again. Monica's voice filled the cab. If Trevor passes, I inherit everything. How soon? She doesn't even suspect. I stopped the playback at that last line. Rewound it. Played it again. She doesn't even suspect. Monica was talking about Leora, my daughter. The little girl I'd carried on my shoulders. The woman I'd walked down the aisle. The person I loved more than anything in this world. And Monica had looked her in the eye, smiled and lied about planning a second honeymoon while plotting to end her father's life. Desmond had called her weak. Like me. My hands tightened on the wheel. I wasn't weak, and neither was Leora. She was strong. Stronger than Monica. Stronger than Desmond. She just didn't know it yet. But she would. When this was over, when the smoke cleared, and the lies were exposed, Leora would see exactly who her mother and husband really were. And she'd be standing beside me when it happened. I started the engine. 2 weeks. That's all I needed. 2 weeks to gather every piece of evidence, every recording, every document, every witness. And then I was going to end this. Not the way they wanted, not with an accident on a job site or a forged contract or stolen money. My way. I pulled out of the parking lot and headed home, the recording still playing in my head. They wanted me gone. They were going to regret that. I stood at the living room window watching the street. Monica had left an hour ago, coffee mug in hand, telling me she had back-to-back client meetings all day. She'd kissed my cheek on her way out. I'd smiled and told her to drive safe. Now I was waiting. Warren's truck pulled up first, followed by Vincent's sedan. I opened the door before they could knock. "Come in, quickly." They followed me into the kitchen. I'd already cleared the table, set out 3 mugs of coffee. We sat, and for a moment, nobody spoke. Then Warren leaned forward. "So what's the plan?" I pulled out a notepad I'd been working on for the past 3 days. Every detail, every step, every contingency. "We're going to catch them," I said. "In the act. In my house. In front of witnesses they can't intimidate or pay off." Vincent raised an eyebrow. "How?" I laid it out. "This Thursday, I'm going to tell Monica I have to drive out to Riverside to check on a project. She'll think I'll be gone overnight. The moment I leave, she'll call Desmond." Warren nodded slowly. "You've checked the pattern. Every time I've traveled in the past 6 months, there's a call to him within an hour. Phone records don't lie. So they'll come here. To my house. To my bed. And that's when we spring the trap." I pulled a small bottle from my jacket pocket and set it on the table. Clear liquid. No label. Obviously, 3 days ago I found this in Monica's nightstand. Intimate gel. Half empty. We haven't been intimate in over 2 years. She's been hiding it, using it with him. Vincent leaned forward. "And I bought an identical bottle online. Emptied it. Refilled it with the same industrial rat glue I'm using for the bed. Swapped them yesterday. Put the fake back in her drawer exactly where she keeps it." Warren's eyes widened. "You're telling me that they'll apply it themselves, before they even touch the sheets? They'll coat their skin thinking it's lubricant, and by the time they realize something's wrong, they'll already be bonded together." Vincent sat back, shaking his head slowly. "That's diabolical. That's insurance," I said. "The glue on the bed might not catch them perfectly. But if they use that bottle first, there's no escape." I explained the rest. The thin cotton sheets I'd already bought. The 2 bottles of industrial rat glue I'd picked up from a hardware supplier 2 towns over, paying cash. It's designed for large rodents. Dries clear in about 90 minutes. No smell. No color. You'd never know it was there until pressure and body heat activate it through the fabric. You can't just pull away. If you try, it tears. Vincent crossed his arms. "You're going to glue them to your bed. To the bed. To each other. To themselves." I met his eyes. "They'll be stuck there until someone comes to help. Which is where the 911 call comes in." I explained the prepaid phone bought with cash 3 weeks ago. A concerned neighbor reporting smoke and possible cries for help from 47 Maple Street. Fire department responds fast. Police too. And they'll bring EMTs. Warren's face went pale. "Leora. She works the Thursday afternoon shift. I checked her schedule." I felt something twist in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "She'll walk into that house with her team, and she'll see exactly what her mother and her husband have been doing." The kitchen went quiet. Vincent spoke first. "That's cruel, Trevor." "No. What's cruel is lying to your daughter while sleeping with her husband. What's cruel is planning to end her father's life for money. I'm giving Leora the chance to see who they really are before it's too late." Warren rubbed his face. "And after the responders get them unstuck, then I show up. With you, Vincent. With every piece of evidence we've gathered. Photos, recordings, financial documents. We hand it all to the police right there, in front of Leora. In front of the neighbors. In front of everyone. They wanted to bury me in an accident. Make it look random. I'm going to bury them in their own lies. Publicly. Completely. Vincent leaned back. The glue. You're sure it won't cause permanent harm? If it does, you're opening yourself up to assault charges. I checked. The manufacturer says it's non-toxic, causes irritation but no lasting damage. And considering they're planning to cause me serious harm, any lawyer will argue this is justifiable defense. Still risky. Everything about this is risky. I looked between them. But I need them caught red-handed. Undeniable. So when Leora has to choose who to believe, there's no question. Warren was quiet for a long time. Then he sighed. This is insane, Trevor. I know. If it goes wrong, you could lose everything. I've already lost my daughter's mother. Desmond's already trying to take my company. I've got nothing left to lose except Leora, and I'm not losing her to their lies. Warren stared at me. Then slowly he nodded. All right, I'm in. What do you need? Be ready Thursday. Stay close. When I call, meet me 2 blocks from the house. We'll go in together after the responders arrive. I turned to Vincent. You too. Bring copies of everything. Vincent hesitated. If you go through with this, there's no going back. This will get ugly. It's already ugly. It'll get worse. So I'm good. I want it public. I want everyone in this town to know exactly what they did. Vincent studied me, then nodded. All right. Thursday. Warren stood extending his hand. I shook it. This is insane, he said again. But I'm with you. I shook Vincent's hand next. Thank you. Both of you. They left through the back door 5 minutes apart. When they were gone, I went upstairs. I stood in the bedroom doorway, looking at the bed Monica and I had shared for 38 years. The bed where we'd held each other through bad dreams, where I'd brought her breakfast on her birthday. They wanted to use this bed to mock me. Not anymore. I pulled out my phone and set a reminder. Thursday. 2 days from now. They wanted to bury me. I was going to bury their lies instead. The house felt different when I knew she wasn't coming back. I stood in the bedroom doorway listening to the silence. Monica had left 20 minutes ago, her car pulling out at 9:30. She'd told me she had a client meeting downtown. My phone buzzed. Vincent's text on the burner. Subject en route to Riverside Inn, ETA 10 minutes. I slipped the phone away and opened Monica's nightstand drawer. The bottle was still there, tucked under a stack of old magazines exactly where I'd left it after the swap. The real one, her bottle of intimate gel, sat in a paper bag in my glove compartment, waiting to be discarded. The fake one I'd left behind yesterday looked identical. Same brand, same cap, same clear liquid inside. Except it wasn't gel, it was industrial rat glue. I closed the drawer and went to the garage. Behind a stack of old paint cans, I'd hidden the rest of the supplies. 2 more bottles of the same glue, 32 ounces each. A roll of thin plastic sheeting, rubber gloves, and a new set of cream-colored cotton sheets identical to the ones Monica had picked out 3 years ago. I carried everything upstairs. The gloves went on first. Thick, yellow rubber. I flexed my fingers and got to work. I stripped the bed. The old sheets came off easily. I folded them and set them aside. Underneath the mattress looked the same as it had for a decade. A few faint stains, a small tear near the corner Monica had always meant to fix. I unrolled the plastic sheeting and spread it across the mattress, tucking the edges so it wouldn't shift. This wasn't about ruining the bed. It was about protection. Then I opened the first glue bottle. The liquid was thick and clear like honey, but heavier. I poured slowly, starting in the center and working outward in a grid, 4 feet by 5 feet. Enough to cover the space where 2 people would lie close together. The first bottle emptied. I opened the second and kept going, filling gaps, making sure the coverage was even, no bare spots. When I finished, I stepped back. The surface glistened faintly in the morning light. It looked wet, but the label said it would dry in 90 minutes. Transparent. Odorless. undetectable unless you touched it. I set a timer and went downstairs. In the kitchen, I made coffee I didn't drink and stared out the window. Mrs. Patterson was watering her roses. 2 houses down, someone was mowing their lawn. Normal Wednesday morning in Millbrook Heights. Nobody knew what was happening inside my house. When the timer went off, I returned upstairs. The glue had dried exactly as promised. The surface was smooth and clear with just a faint sheen. I crouched down and pressed my gloved hand against it. It stuck immediately. I pulled gently, then harder. The glove stretched but didn't come free. I had to peel it off slowly, and even then I felt the resistance. Perfect. I peeled off the gloves and threw them in a trash bag with the empty bottles. Then I pulled out the new sheets. They were thin, thinner than Monica usually bought. I'd done that on purpose. The thinner the fabric, the easier for the glue to make contact with skin through the material. I spread the fitted sheet carefully over the mattress, pulling it tight at the corners. The flat sheet went on next, tucked loosely the way Monica liked. Then the comforter fluffed and arranged so it looked normal. I stepped back. The bed looked untouched. Perfectly ordinary. You'd never know anything was wrong unless you lay down. I pressed my bare hand against the top sheet. I could feel the tackiness underneath, faint but present. Just enough. I grabbed the trash bag and the real gel bottle from my car. On the drive out of town, I stopped at a gas station 15 miles away and tossed everything into a public dumpster behind the building. No cameras, no witnesses. By the time I got home, it was 6 o'clock. Monica's car was in the driveway. I parked beside it and sat for a moment, gripping the wheel. She was inside, probably making dinner, probably thinking about tomorrow when I'd be gone and Desmond would be here. I went in. She was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She turned when she heard me. The smell hit me before she spoke. Cologne. Men's cologne. Not mine. "Hey," she said, smiling. "You're home." I was starting to think you'd gotten stuck at the site. I set my keys on the counter. "Just finishing up paperwork. Dinner's almost ready, chicken and rice." I nodded and sat. We ate in silence. I wasn't hungry, but I forced down a few bites. Monica chatted about her day, something about a client's messy tax records, and I made the appropriate noises. She didn't mention Desmond. She never did. After dinner, I went upstairs and pulled a suitcase from the closet. I packed slowly. A few shirts, jeans, toiletries, everything I'd need for a fake trip. Monica appeared in the doorway. "When will you be back?" I zipped the suitcase. "Friday night. Maybe Saturday morning, depending on the inspection." She nodded. "Drive safe." I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman I'd married 38 years ago. At the mother of my daughter. At the person who'd stood beside me through every struggle. At the stranger who'd been planning to end my life. "I will," I said. That night, I climbed into bed beside her one last time. She fell asleep quickly, her breathing soft and even. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling the faint tackiness beneath the sheets. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow everything ends. When the alarm went off at 5, Monica didn't stir. I got up quietly dressed and stood at the foot of the bed. For 38 years, I'd loved this woman. For 38 years, I'd trusted her. For 38 years, I'd believed we were building something together. And tomorrow, I was going to watch her world collapse. I picked up my suitcase and walked out. At 6, I was standing on Warren's porch. He opened the door in his bathrobe, eyes half closed. "It's done," he asked. I nodded. "It's done." He stepped aside and let me in. Now all I had to do was wait. I stood on the sidewalk and watched Leora disappear through the front door. I couldn't see what happened next. The angle was wrong, the crowd too thick. But later I pieced it together. From what the responders told Warren, from what Leora said when she could finally speak, from what I saw when I walked in, this is what happened. Leora stepped into the living room, Captain Hayes right behind her. The firefighters fanned out, checking for smoke. Nothing. No haze. No heat. Just an empty room that smelled faintly of coffee and Monica's lavender soap. Officer Reynolds moved past them. "Millbrook Heights Police, is anyone home?" Silence. Then faint and desperate, a voice from upstairs. "Help up here." Leora moved first. Instinct. Training. She was up the stairs before Hayes could stop her boots heavy on the wood medical bag swinging. The hallway on the second floor was dim. The bedroom door at the end stood halfway open. She pushed it the rest of the way and stopped. Monica was on the bed, naked from the waist up, skin flushed and damp. She still wore underwear, but that was all. Her hair was tangled, arms stretched awkwardly above her head. Desmond was on top of her, completely naked. Pressed against her chest, to chest legs tangled. His hands were pinned to the sheets on either side of her head. Her hands were trapped between their bodies. They weren't moving. Not the way people move when they're caught. They were stuck, literally. Glued in place, skin to skin, limbs twisted together like they'd been frozen mid-motion. And on the nightstand, tipped on its side, was a clear plastic bottle, open, nearly empty. Leora's eyes flicked to it, then back to the bed. Desmond's head turned toward the door. His eyes went wide. Don't come in." But Leora was already in. Her voice came out small, broken. "Mom." Monica's head jerked toward her. For a second, her face went blank. Then it crumpled. Leora. She tried to move to cover herself, but her body wouldn't budge. "Oh, God, Leora, Desmond." Leora's voice cracked. He didn't answer. He turned his face away, jaw clenched, breathing hard. Captain Hayes appeared behind Leora. He took one look and put a hand on her shoulder. "Lawson, step back. I've got this." Leora didn't move. "Lawson." She took one step back, then another. Her hands were shaking. "That's my mother," she whispered. "And my husband." Hayes stepped past her into the room, his face carefully neutral. He crouched near the bed, eyeing the sheets the way their skin pulled taut whenever they tried to shift. One of the firefighters came in, took a look, and whistled low. Hayes picked up the bottle from the nightstand, squinted at it, sniffed. His face went flat. "This isn't gel," he said quietly. "It's adhesive." Monica made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. "What? You used this before you got into bed?" Desmond tried to shift his weight. His skin tugged against Monica's chest. He hissed through his teeth. "Yes. We—" He stopped. Couldn't finish. Hayes set the bottle down. "Industrial adhesive. They coated themselves before they ever touched the sheets." From downstairs came the sound of voices, neighbors pressing closer. Officer Reynolds was trying to keep them out, but Mrs. Anderson's voice cut through. "Let me see, I live across the street, I have a right." She must have pushed past Reynolds. A second later, her voice rang out from the hallway, high and scandalized. "Oh my Lord, it's Monica. And that young man." Leora flinched like she'd been slapped. Reynolds was on the radio now. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Non-emergency at 47 Maple Street. 2 adults trapped by adhesive, domestic in nature. Requesting additional units." Downstairs the murmurs grew louder. "Monica Lawson. With who? Isn't that her son-in-law?" Hayes turned to the firefighters. "We need acetone mineral spirits, something strong, and towels. Lots of them." One firefighter nodded and jogged downstairs. Hayes looked at Leora. She was still standing in the doorway, pale as paper. Another EMT appeared beside her. Rachel, dark hair pulled back. She put an arm around Leora's shoulders. "Hey," Rachel said softly. "You don't have to stay. I can take over." Leora shook her head. Her voice came out flat, hard. "No, I'm staying. I'm going to finish this." Rachel hesitated, then nodded. On the bed, Monica was crying now. Quiet, wrenching sobs. "Leora, please, I can explain." "Don't." Leora's voice cut like glass. "Just don't." Desmond still hadn't said a word. His face was turned to the wall, shoulders shaking. That's when I walked in. The crowd on the lawn parted. George Hartley blinked. "Trevor, I thought you were out of town." I didn't answer. I kept walking, up the porch steps, through the door, past Officer Reynolds, who let me go when I met her eyes. I climbed the stairs slowly. My legs felt like lead. At the top, I saw her, Leora, standing in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself, tears streaming down her face. She turned when she heard my footsteps. For a long moment, we just stared. Then her voice broke. "Dad, you knew." I nodded, tried to speak. Couldn't. Tried again. "I'm sorry." My voice came out rough. "I'm sorry you had to see this. But I needed you to know." Her face twisted. Fresh tears spilled. "How long?" "Long enough." She looked at me like I was someone she'd never met. Then she stepped forward and collapsed against my chest. I caught her, held her, felt her shake with sobs she'd been holding back. Behind us, I could hear Hayes directing the firefighters, the hiss of a solvent bottle, Monica's pleading, Desmond's silence, and below the whispers of the neighbors spreading the story through Millbrook Heights like wildfire. But right now, none of that mattered. All that mattered was my daughter breaking apart in my arms and the knowledge that I'd been the one to do this to her, even if it was the only way to save her. Before I tell you what happened during that rescue, drop a number to show you're still watching. Comment 1 if you're Team Trevor, I did what I had to do. Comment 2 if you think I crossed the line. I want to see those numbers roll in. Quick note, what follows contains fictional elements for storytelling purposes. If you'd rather not continue, now's your chance to exit. I stood in the hallway with Leora still pressed against me, her shoulders shaking. Behind us, through the open bedroom door, I could see Captain Hayes crouched beside the bed, a bottle of acetone in one hand, a towel in the other. "All right," he said, his voice calm and businesslike. "This is going to take a while. I need both of you to stay completely still. Any movement makes it worse," Monica whimpered. Desmond said nothing. Hayes looked at the nightstand, at the overturned bottle. "You applied this before you got into bed." Desmond didn't answer. Monica's voice came out small. "Yes," Hayes exhaled slowly. "That means the adhesive is coating your skin directly, not just stuck to the sheets. This is going to be harder than I thought." Leora pulled back from me, wiping her eyes. Her face was red and blotchy, but her jaw was set. She turned toward the bedroom, and I followed. We didn't go in. We just stood there watching. One of the firefighters poured acetone onto a towel and handed it to Hayes, who pressed it carefully against Monica's shoulder, where her skin was stuck to Desmond's chest. "This is going to sting," Hayes warned. Monica hissed through her teeth as the solvent soaked in. The chemical smell filled the room, sharp and medicinal. Hayes held the towel in place, counting under his breath. 2 minutes. 3. Then he peeled it back and gently tested the bond. The skin moved slightly, pulling away from Desmond's with a soft, tearing sound that made my stomach turn. "Good," Hayes muttered. "Progress." He moved to the next spot. Monica's forearm bonded to Desmond's ribs. Another towel. Another 3-minute wait. Another careful separation. Then her wrist stuck to the sheet beneath her. Her hip pressed against his thigh. Each bond required the same slow, painful process. Hayes worked methodically, moving from one adhesive point to the next. Chest, abdomen, thighs. The areas where they'd applied the gel, the fake gel, before climbing into bed. Monica was crying again. Quiet, broken sobs. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Nobody answered her. Leora stood beside me, arms crossed, face expressionless. She looked carved from ice. 25 minutes. That's how long it took. 25 minutes of acetone and towels and careful, painful separations. By the time Hayes finally pulled them apart, Monica's chest and arms were red and raw, covered in angry welts where the adhesive had torn at her skin. Desmond's torso looked the same red marks across his ribs, his stomach, his thighs. One of the firefighters handed them blankets. Desmond wrapped his around his waist, immediately face burning. Monica clutched hers to her chest, still crying. Hayes stood and wiped his hands. "You'll both need medical evaluation. Those are second-degree chemical burns. Minimal, but you'll need ointment and monitoring." Officer Reynolds stepped into the room. She looked at me. "Mr. Lawson, can you explain what happened here?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out the burner phone. "Listen to this." I pulled up the recording Vincent had sent me. Hit play. Monica's voice filled the room, tinny but clear. "If Trevor passes, I inherit everything. The company, the house, the life insurance policy, $2 million. Then Desmond's voice, calm and cold. "We can't wait forever, Monica. He's 63 and healthy as an ox. We need to speed this up." Reynolds' posture stiffened. The recording played on. The part about the accident, the scaffolding, the equipment malfunction. When it finished, Reynolds looked at Monica and Desmond. "This is evidence of conspiracy. I'm going to need both of you to come down to the station for questioning." Monica's head snapped up. "Trevor, please. It was just talk. We never meant. You talked about removing me so you could take my company, my money, my life." I said, my voice flat and cold. "And you did it in my bed." She flinched like I'd hit her. Reynolds pulled out handcuffs. "Mr. Clark, get dressed." Desmond pulled on pants under the blanket, awkward and humiliated. When he stood, Reynolds cuffed his wrists. "Mrs. Lawson, you too." Monica took the dress one of the firefighters handed her and disappeared into the bathroom to change. That's when Leora moved. She crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped directly in front of Desmond. He looked up, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. "I trusted you," Leora said quietly. "I loved you, and you did this with my mother. In my father's bed." Desmond opened his mouth, closed it. "Leora, I'm sorry." She hit him. Not hard, just a sharp slap across the face that echoed in the silent room. Reynolds didn't move to stop her. "We're done," Leora said, her voice like steel. "Don't ever contact me again." She turned to Monica, who had just emerged from the bathroom pale and trembling. "Leora." Monica started stepping forward. "Please, I'm still your mother." "No." Leora shook her head, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I don't know who you are anymore." Monica reached for her. "Leora, you're a stranger," Leora said, and her voice finally broke. "That's all you are now." Monica crumpled, sobbing, into her hands. Reynolds took her by the arm. "Let's go." They led them downstairs. I followed at a distance, Leora at my side. The neighbors were still gathered on the lawn, but they'd gone quiet. They parted to let the officers through, watching in silence as Monica and Desmond were guided into the back of the patrol car. Nobody said a word. Vincent appeared at my elbow and handed a thick folder to Officer Reynolds. "Everything's in here. Photos, audio recordings, financial documents, surveillance footage, all time-stamped." Reynolds took it and nodded. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Lawson." "I won't go anywhere." The patrol car's lights came on silent this time. Just the slow, deliberate pull away from the curb. The crowd watched it go. Then one by one they drifted back to their houses. Within 5 minutes the street was empty. I stood on the porch, Leora beside me, watching the patrol car disappear around the corner. She leaned into me, her head resting on my shoulder. "How long have you known?" I wrapped an arm around her. "Long enough to protect you, and to make sure they couldn't hurt us anymore." She was quiet for a long time. Then softly, "Thank you." I didn't know what to say, so I just held her. The house behind us felt emptier than it ever had, but Leora was still here. Still standing. Still strong. And for now, that was enough. 6 hours had passed since the police car pulled away from my house. 6 hours and I still felt numb. Leora and I sat in the waiting room at Millbrook Heights Memorial, surrounded by the sterile smell of antiseptic and the low hum of fluorescent lights. The plastic chairs were uncomfortable, but neither of us had moved in the past hour. We'd driven here in silence, followed the ambulance that carried Monica and Desmond, watched them get wheeled in through the emergency entrance on separate gurneys, blankets pulled up to their chins, faces turned away from each other. Now we waited. Leora sat with her arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. She'd changed out of her EMT uniform at some point, I didn't remember when, and now wore jeans and a plain gray sweater. Her eyes were red and swollen. I didn't know what to say to her, so I didn't say anything. At 4 o'clock, a doctor in blue scrubs pushed through the double doors. He scanned the room, spotted us, and walked over. Mr. Lawson, I'm Dr. Samuel Reed. I've been overseeing your wife's care." I stood. Leora didn't. "How is she?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I cared. "She and Mr. Clark both have first- and second-degree chemical burns on their chest, abdomen, and thighs. The adhesive caused some irritation, but the real damage came from the solvent we used to separate them. Acetone can be harsh on the skin. Will they be all right?" "Physically, yes. We've applied topical treatments and started them on pain medication. They'll need to stay for observation 24 to 48 hours to make sure there's no allergic reaction or secondary infection." Leora spoke for the first time, her voice flat. "Are they in the same room?" Dr. Reed shook his head. "No. Separate rooms per police request." She nodded and looked away. I cleared my throat. "Can I see her, Monica? I mean," Dr. Reed hesitated. "She's resting. But if you'd like, I can arrange a short visit." "I would." He glanced at Leora. "Would you like to—" "No," she said quickly. "I'm not going." Dr. Reed nodded and looked back at me. "Room 314. Officer Reynolds is stationed outside." I turned to Leora. She was still staring at the wall, her face pale and drawn. "You don't have to go," I said quietly, putting a hand on her shoulder. "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. I can't. Not yet." "That's okay." I left her there and followed Dr. Reed down the hall. Room 314 was at the end door, half closed. Officer Reynolds stood beside it, arms crossed, face impassive. She nodded when she saw me. 10 minutes, she said. "Understood." I pushed the door open. Monica was lying in the hospital bed, propped up against a stack of pillows. Her face was pale, her hair limp and tangled. She wore a hospital gown, and one of her wrists was cuffed to the metal bed rail. "Standard procedure for suspects in custody." She looked up when I came in, and her eyes filled with tears. "Trevor," her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." I didn't move closer. I just stood there 2 meters from the bed, my hands in my pockets. "Sorry for what, Monica?" She blinked, confused. For everything. For what I did, for hurting you. Be specific." My voice came out flat cold. "Are you sorry for cheating, for stealing, or for plotting to remove me so you could take everything I've built?" She flinched. "Trevor, I never wanted to hurt you. It happened. Desmond made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. He made me feel young again. Wanted. You were always working, always building, and I felt invisible." I shook my head slowly. "I worked to build a life for us. For you. For Leora. I built you a home. I gave you everything I had. And you repaid me by stealing from me and planning my death. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that." She started crying ugly, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I know I destroyed everything. But please, Trevor, please don't take Leora from me. She's my daughter. I'm still her mother. You stopped being her mother the moment you slept with her husband." "Trevor, she doesn't want to see you, Monica. She's sitting in the waiting room right now, and she refused to come in here. And I don't blame her. Monica's face crumpled. What's going to happen to me? I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved for 38 years. This woman I'd built a life with. This stranger. The police have the recordings, I said quietly. The ones where you and Desmond discussed having me removed. They have the financial documents showing the embezzlement, the forged signatures, the offshore accounts. You're going to be charged with conspiracy and fraud. Maybe more. Trevor, please. You'll lose everything. The house, the company, our life. Everything you tried to steal from me, you're going to lose anyway. She reached for me with her free hand, but I stepped back. I loved you for 38 years, Monica. I built you a home with my own hands. I trusted you with my life. And you sold me out for a younger man and a bank account. I didn't. We're done. I turned and walked to the door. Trevor, wait. I didn't wait. I walked out, pulled the door shut behind me, and didn't look back. Officer Reynolds gave me a nod as I passed. I didn't acknowledge it. I walked back down the hallway past the nurse's station, past the vending machines, until I reached the waiting room. Leora was still in the same chair, staring at the same spot on the wall. I sat down beside her. She didn't look at me, but she spoke. How is she? She's alive. And I leaned back in the chair, suddenly exhausted. The woman I married, she's gone. Leora was quiet for a long time. Then she leaned her head against my shoulder. We sat there in silence. Two people who'd lost the people they loved most. In the same house. On the same day. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Outside the sun was setting. And somewhere down the hall, Monica was crying alone in a hospital room, handcuffed to a bed with no one left who cared. We couldn't go into the master bedroom. The door was closed, a strip of yellow police tape stretched across the frame. Evidence collected. The smell of glue and acetone still hung in the air, seeping out from under the door like a ghost. So Leora and I sat in the living room instead, a pizza box open on the coffee table between us. I'd ordered it on the way home. Pepperoni. Her favorite when she was a kid. Neither of us had eaten much. It was 8 o'clock. The house was too quiet. Outside, the streetlights had come on, casting long shadows through the windows. Leora picked at a slice, pulling off a piece of pepperoni and setting it aside. She hadn't looked at me since we'd sat down. Finally, she spoke. When did you start suspecting? I set down my own slice. The night she came home late, about 3 weeks ago. I found a hotel receipt in her purse. Riverside Inn. $287. Leora looked up. That's it, a receipt. That's where it started. Then I found more. Lingerie that wasn't hers. Charges on our credit card I didn't recognize. Cash withdrawals week after week. I leaned back against the couch. I hired Vincent to follow her. He got photos, and then I saw who she was with. Desmond. Desmond. Her face crumpled and fresh tears spilled over. How long? The affair started over 4 years ago, before he married you. She closed her eyes. Oh, God. I'm sorry, sweetheart. He was with her before we even... Her voice broke. Before we got married. I thought he loved me. He never loved you, I said quietly. He used you to get close to me, to get access to the company, to Monica. She put her face in her hands and sobbed. I moved closer, put my arm around her shoulders. She leaned into me, shaking. I didn't tell you sooner because I needed proof, I said. If I'd told you without evidence, Desmond would have lied. He would have made you doubt me. And I couldn't risk them destroying what I'd gathered. I couldn't risk them hurting you. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I should have seen it. The late nights, the calls he'd take in the other room, the way Mom always defended him when I complained. They were good at lying. That's not your fault. She stared at the pizza box, her jaw tight. What else did you find? So I told her. All of it. The forged signatures. The fake invoices, the offshore account, the stock transfer, the recordings of them planning to have me removed so they could liquidate the company. By the time I finished, her tears had stopped. Her face had gone hard. They were going to end your life, she said flatly. Yes, and take everything. Yes. She was quiet for a long time. Then she looked at me. The glue. That was you, wasn't it? I nodded. I wanted them humiliated. I wanted them to feel shame in front of everyone they'd lied to. And I wanted you to see it for yourself, so you'd never doubt your decision to leave him. It was cruel. So was plotting to remove me. So was stealing from my company. So was sleeping with your husband in my bed. She flinched. Then slowly she nodded. You're right. They deserved it. We sat in silence after that. Ate a little more pizza. Didn't talk. At 9 o'clock my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Hello. Mr. Lawson, this is Nurse Beverly from Millbrook Heights Memorial. There's a situation with your wife and Mr. Clark. I sat up straight. What kind of situation? They're both experiencing severe skin irritation and pain. Burning, itching redness spreading across the affected areas. Dr. Reed wants to examine them again. We're not sure if it's an allergic reaction to the treatment or something else. I glanced at Leora. She was watching me, eyes wide. We'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up. What happened? Leora asked. Monica and Desmond. Something's wrong. We drove back to the hospital in silence. By the time we arrived, it was 9:30. Dr. Reed met us in the hallway outside Monica's room, his face grim. What's going on? I asked. Their conditions have worsened significantly. Both of them are experiencing second-degree burns, intense itching, swelling, and blistering on the areas that were already irritated. We've had to rebandage and administer stronger pain medication. How did this happen? He pulled out a small tube. Hydrocortisone cream, standard issue. We applied this earlier to soothe the irritation from the adhesive and the solvent. But when we tested a sample, we found contaminants, capsaicin powder, and what appears to be an industrial-grade itching agent. I kept my face neutral. Contaminants. This wasn't an accident, Mr. Lawson. Someone tampered with the medication. Officer Reynolds appeared at the end of the hall, her expression sharp. She walked over, arms crossed. Mr. Lawson, do you know anything about this? I shook my head. No. I've been home with my daughter since 6 o'clock. You can check with the pizza delivery driver if you need confirmation. She studied me for a long moment. Then she turned to Dr. Reed. Keep the samples. I'll need them for evidence. Through the window of Monica's room, I could see her lying in bed, her arms wrapped in fresh bandages. She was crying again, her face red and blotchy. She looked up and saw me standing there. Our eyes met. I turned away. Down the hall, Desmond's voice rose sharp and angry. I want to call my lawyer, now. Officer Reynolds sighed. You're entitled to a lawyer, Mr. Clark. But you're still under investigation. You're not going anywhere. Leora stood beside me, staring through the window at Monica. She looks like she's in pain. She is. Good. I looked at her surprised. She met my eyes, her face cold. They were going to bury you, Dad. I'm glad they're suffering. We left the hospital at 11. On the drive home, Leora was quiet. Then softly she asked, Did you do it, the powder? I didn't answer right away. I kept my eyes on the road hand, steady on the wheel. Then I said, They wanted to bury me, Leora. I just made sure they'd remember what it feels like to burn. She didn't say anything, but she reached over and squeezed my hand. And that was answer enough. I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing like an angry hornet. Sunlight sliced through the guest bedroom curtains. I'd spent the night there because the master bedroom still reeked of acetone and regret. I reached for the phone and saw 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, and a string of email notifications. The first name I recognized was Warren's. Warren Blackwood. You okay? Call me. I scrolled down. Pamela Norton, my office manager, had written, "Boss, we need to talk about next week's schedule. Let me know when you're ready." There was a message from Amy Patterson, a reporter at the Millbrook Gazette, asking for an interview. I deleted it without reading past the first line. A few neighbors, George Hartley, Mrs. Anderson, even old Mr. Sinclair from 2 blocks over, had sent brief notes of support. 1 or 2 messages carried a different tone, hinting that I'd crossed a line, that what I'd done was cruel or vindictive. I ignored those. The people who mattered knew the truth. I walked downstairs and found Leora already in the kitchen pouring coffee. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, but her jaw was set in the same determined line I'd seen the night before. She handed me a mug without a word, and I took it gratefully. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that came after a storm when the wind had died, and the world was waiting to see what remained. I opened the Millbrook Gazette website on my phone and scanned the headline, "Affair Scandal Rocks Local Construction Magnate's Family. Wife and son-in-law caught in humiliating trap." The article was careful, citing sources close to the investigation, but the facts were there. By noon, everyone in Millbrook Heights would know the story. By evening, everyone in the county would. I set the phone down and looked at Leora. She was staring into her coffee, steam rising between us. "Are you going back to work?" I asked. She shook her head. "I took a week off. Captain Hayes said I should. Rachel and the rest of the crew, they've been texting all morning. They're worried about me, but they understand." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. "We need to fix that bedroom," I said. "I can't sleep in the guest room forever." A flicker of a smile crossed her face. I was thinking the same thing. New mattress, fresh paint, maybe some new curtains. Make it yours again. We spent the rest of the morning calling furniture stores and paint suppliers, planning the renovation, like a pair of generals mapping out a campaign. It felt good to have something constructive, to do something that didn't involve lawyers or police reports. Detective Jennifer Blake called just after lunch. I put her on speaker so Leora could hear. "Mr. Lawson, I wanted to update you on the charges," Blake said, her voice crisp and professional. Monica Lawson and Desmond Clark have both been formally charged with conspiracy to commit serious harm, embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. Bail has been set at $50,000 each. They're both still in custody pending arraignment on Monday. "Good," I said. The word came out harder than I'd intended. Blake paused. "There's also the matter of the contaminated ointment. We've received a lab report confirming capsaicin powder and an industrial-grade itching agent were mixed into the hydrocortisone cream. We're investigating, but at this point, we have no evidence linking you or anyone associated with you to the tampering. Both suspects have declined to press charges, likely because they don't want to draw more attention to the circumstances of their discovery." I kept my face neutral. "I wasn't involved, Detective. I told you that last night. I believe you," Blake said, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. "Just stay available. We may have follow-up questions." She hung up. Leora looked at me, one eyebrow raised. I shrugged. "I didn't touch that cream," I said. It was true. I hadn't. Vincent had handled that part, and Vincent was very good at covering his tracks. I didn't need to say that out loud. Leora seemed to understand. The divorce paperwork arrived by courier in the late afternoon. I'd filed an emergency petition with the county court invoking a prenuptial agreement Monica and I had signed 38 years ago. According to the terms, Monica was entitled to 10% of our personal assets, the house, the cars, the joint savings, but nothing from the company. No stock, no voting rights, no claim to the contracts or the reputation I'd built over 5 decades. My lawyer estimated she'd walk away with maybe $100,000 after debts and legal fees. Considering she'd tried to steal millions, it felt like justice. Leora's divorce was moving even faster. Her lawyer had contacted Desmond's attorney that morning, and Desmond hadn't contested a single term. He'd sent her a text around 3 in the afternoon, a long, rambling apology about mistakes and regrets. Leora showed it to me, then deleted it without replying. "Hi, he doesn't get to apologize," she said. "He lost that right." I agreed. By evening, we were both exhausted. The bedroom renovation would start Monday. The divorce hearings were scheduled for the following week. The criminal trial was months away. For now, all we could do was breathe. I walked out onto the front porch, and Leora followed. The sun was sinking behind the hills to the west, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Leora leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed. "What happens now, Dad?" I thought about that. The scandal would fade eventually. The neighbors would find something else to talk about. Monica and Desmond would face trial, serve time, or cut deals and vanish from our lives. The company would survive. The house would be repaired. Life would go on. "We rebuild," I said, "together." She nodded slowly, and for the first time in days, I saw something like peace in her eyes. We stood there in silence, watching the sun go down, and I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we were going to be okay. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 10 days after the world had watched my wife and son-in-law hauled out of my bedroom in handcuffs. I was sitting in the small office I'd set up in the corner of the living room, reviewing a bid for a library renovation, when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, a local area code, but not one I recognized. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. "Trevor Lawson," I said. There was a pause, then a voice I knew too well. "Desmond Clark." "Yeah, I know what you did, Trevor." His tone was low-controlled, but I could hear the anger simmering beneath. The glue, the 911 call, the powder at the hospital. "I don't have proof yet, but I'll find it. And when I do, I'm dragging you down with us." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Part of me wanted to laugh. The other part wanted to reach through the phone and finish what I'd started. "Go ahead and try," I said, my voice cold. "You don't have proof because there isn't any. And even if you did, who's going to believe you? You're the man who was caught in bed with his mother-in-law, plotting to harm his father-in-law. You're finished, Desmond. You just don't know it yet." There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing fast and shallow. Then he hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone still in my hand, then dialed Detective Blake. She picked up on the second ring. "Lawson," she said. "What can I do for you?" "Desmond Clark just called me, threatened me, said he'd drag me down with him." Blake sighed. "Did he make a specific threat? Say he was going to harm you?" "Not in so many words, but the intent was clear." "I'll make a note of it," she said. "But unless he makes an explicit threat or takes action, there's not much I can do. Just keep your distance and let me know if he contacts you again." I hung up, feeling a knot of frustration in my chest. Desmond was desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. But he was also stupid, and stupid people made mistakes. An hour later, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. An older woman stood on my porch, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a pale blue cardigan. I recognized her immediately. Margaret Hayes, Monica's mother. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Margaret," I said. She looked up at me, her eyes red and tired. "Trevor, thank you for seeing me. I didn't say I'd see you. I said I'd open the door." She flinched, but held her ground. "I flew in from Tampa this morning. I need to talk to you about Monica." I crossed my arms. "There's nothing to talk about. Please," she said, her voice cracking. "I know what she did was terrible, unforgivable, but she's still my daughter, and she's broken, Trevor. Completely broken." I felt a flash of anger. "She broke herself, Margaret. She made her choices, and she tried to break me, too. Margaret nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I know. I know. But there's something you need to know. Something she told me. I hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. We sat in the living room. Margaret perched on the edge of the couch, clutching her purse. I sat across from her, arms still crossed. Monica was pregnant, Margaret said quietly. I froze. What? She did in vitro fertilization 3 months ago, at a clinic in Cyprus. She used Desmond's sample. She wanted to have a baby with him. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I opened my mouth, closed it, then opened it again. She was going to pass his child off as mine. Margaret nodded, crying openly now. I told her it was wrong. I begged her not to do it. But she said you wouldn't notice. That you were always so busy with work you wouldn't question it. I stood up, turned away, stared out the window. My hands were shaking. She lost the baby 2 weeks ago, Margaret continued. Miscarried. The stress from the scandal. I turned back to her, my voice low and hard. I worked for 38 years to give her a good life, Margaret. I built a company. I built this house. I gave her everything, and she repaid me with lies, theft, and betrayal. I don't care if she's broken. She deserves to be. Margaret stood clutching her purse and walked to the door. She paused, looked back at me. I'm sorry, Trevor. For everything. I didn't answer. She left and I stood alone in the empty room, feeling hollow. The phone rang again that afternoon. Another unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Lawson. A woman's voice, warm and southern. My name is Vanessa Porter. You don't know me, but I know Desmond Clark. I was his first wife. I sat down slowly. His first wife? Yes, sir. We were married 7 years ago. I was 42, a widow with some money my late husband left me. Desmond was 27, charming, told me he was a financial consultant. We married after 6 months. He drained about $150,000 from my accounts, had an affair with my 23-year-old assistant, and divorced me after 18 months. I tried to sue him for fraud, but I didn't have enough proof. I listened, my pulse quickening. I saw the news about what happened to you, Vanessa continued. I recognized him in the photos. I wanted to reach out and offer my testimony. I have bank records, emails, witness statements from that time. If it'll help put him away, I want to do it. I exhaled slowly. Why now? Because I want to see him pay for what he did to me, to you, and to your daughter. Men like Desmond don't stop Mr. Lawson. They just find new victims. It's time someone stopped him. I wrote down her contact information and promised to pass it along to Detective Blake. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. That evening, I told Leora about Vanessa's call. We were sitting on the porch, the air cool and sharp. Leora listened without interrupting, her jaw tightening with every word. He did this before, she said finally, her voice shaking. And I was just... What another mark. I put my arm around her shoulders. You were never a mark, sweetheart. You were cover. A way for him to get close to us. But he's done now. Vanessa's testimony will bury him. Leora nodded, her eyes hard. Good. I want him to rot in prison. I pulled her close, and we sat there in the fading light, two people learning to stand again. I woke that morning to silence, the kind that settles over a house before something inevitable happens. 31 days had passed since the night I found the hotel receipt in Monica's purse. Today, the legal system would begin to decide what came next. I dressed carefully, a charcoal suit, white shirt, navy tie, and met Leora in the kitchen. She was already ready, wearing a dark blue blazer and slacks, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She looked older than she had a month ago. We both did. Warren picked us up at 8. Vincent met us at the courthouse, a granite building in the center of Millbrook Heights. Reporters were already gathering on the steps. I ignored them and walked inside. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, paneled in dark wood with high ceilings. Warren, Vincent, Leora, and I sat in the gallery behind the prosecution table. Across the aisle, Monica sat beside her attorney, wearing a plain gray dress that hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight. She glanced at me once, then looked away. Desmond sat at a separate table with his own lawyer, his expression cold and unreadable. Judge Patricia Holloway entered, a stern woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and graying hair. The bailiff called the room to order, and the preliminary hearing began. The prosecutor laid out the case methodically. First, the recordings. Monica's voice filled the room. "How soon can we do it?" Desmond's reply, "Give me 2 weeks. I'll make it look like an accident." I heard Monica sob quietly. Desmond stared straight ahead. Second, the financial documents. Bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals, forged checks, the offshore transfer of $125,000. The fraudulent contract transferring 40% of my company's stock to Monica, signed with a forged version of my signature. Third, the surveillance evidence. Photos and video of Monica and Desmond together. 8 separate occasions over 3 months. Meeting at hotels, kissing in parking lots, holding hands in restaurants. Finally, the testimony of Vanessa Porter via video feed from Florida. "Now Desmond Clark is a predator," she said. "He targeted me when I was vulnerable, a widow with money. He charmed me, married me, drained my accounts, and left me with nothing. When I saw the news about Mr. Lawson, I knew Desmond had done it again." Judge Holloway turned to Monica. "Does the defendant wish to make a statement?" Monica stood gripping the edge of the table. "I'm sorry," she said. "I was weak. I was foolish. I let Desmond manipulate me, but I never wanted Trevor to be harmed." The prosecutor objected. "Your Honor," the defendant asked, "how soon?" when Mr. Clark suggested an accident. "That is consent." Judge Holloway leaned forward. "I find probable cause to bind both defendants over for trial." She announced the charges formally. Monica faced embezzlement and conspiracy to commit fraud, 5 to 10 years if convicted. Desmond faced embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to cause serious harm, 10 to 15 years. Judge Holloway raised bail to $100,000 each and barred them from leaving the state. Monica broke down. Desmond remained silent. When the judge gavelled the hearing closed, I stood and walked out without looking back. Leora, Warren, and Vincent followed. Outside, the reporters swarmed. Leora stopped on the courthouse steps and turned to face the cameras. She unfolded a piece of paper and read in a clear, steady voice, "My name is Leora Lawson Clark, though soon it will just be Leora Lawson. I stand here today not as a daughter or a wife, but as a woman who was betrayed by the 2 people she trusted most. My mother and my husband chose to destroy my father and my family out of greed and lust. I do not forgive them. I do not pity them. I only hope the law will punish them as they deserve. Thank you." The reporters applauded. Leora folded the paper, turned, and walked down the steps. I placed my hand on her shoulder, pride swelling in my chest. We drove home in silence. When we pulled into the driveway, Leora finally spoke. "Do you think Mom will go to prison?" I turned off the engine and sat for a moment staring at the house I'd built with my own 2 hands. I don't know," I said. "But whether she does or not, she's already lost everything that mattered. You, me, her reputation, her freedom." Leora nodded slowly. We got out of the car and walked inside together, ready to begin a new chapter. I stood on the front porch on a Saturday morning in late October, watching the leaves fall. 2 months had passed since the preliminary hearing, 90 days since the night I found that hotel receipt. The world had changed. I had changed. but the house still stood solid and quiet the way I'd built it all those years ago. Autumn in Millbrook Heights was always beautiful. Gold and crimson leaves blanketing the yard, the air crisp and clean. I took a slow breath and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Inside, the business of healing had begun. Monica had signed away her claims to Lawson and Sons as part of the divorce settlement. The company was mine again, fully and completely. Within weeks, 2 of my oldest clients awarded us new contracts totaling $1.8 million. Word had spread about what Monica and Desmond had done, and instead of driving customers away, it had brought them closer. People in this town valued loyalty. I'd promoted Warren Blackwood to Chief Operating Officer. We'd talked about the future over coffee one morning, and I'd told him my plan 5 more years then, retirement. If Leora wanted the company, it would be hers. If not, Warren could buy me out. Leora had listened carefully when I'd explained it to her. "I don't know if I want to run a construction company, Dad," she'd said. "But I'll think about it." "No pressure," I'd replied. "I just want you to have choices." She'd smiled then, a real smile, and I'd known we were going to be okay. The master bedroom was unrecognizable now. I'd stripped it down to the studs, replaced everything. The walls were a soft cream instead of the old pale blue. I'd hung new photos. Me and Leora at her college graduation, my parents standing in front of the house the day we finished building it. There were no pictures of Monica. That part of my life was over. Leora had gone back to her EMT shifts full-time. She'd lived with me for 3 months after the hearing, then moved into a small apartment near the hospital. She visited twice a week for dinner. It was enough. Monica's fate had been decided quickly. Her lawyer had negotiated a plea deal: 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and restitution payments of $180,000 over 10 years. The judge had also issued a no-contact order. She'd moved back to Florida to live with her mother. Desmond had refused the plea deal. His trial was scheduled for 6 months from now. His lawyer predicted he'd get 8 to 12 years if convicted. Vanessa Porter had agreed to testify about his pattern of fraud and manipulation. Leora had finalized her divorce 2 weeks ago. She was Leora Lawson again. She'd come home that day with the court papers in her hand and a look of relief on her face. One weekend evening in early November, Leora and I hosted a dinner. We invited Warren, Vincent, Captain Hayes, and a few close friends. I fired up the grill and cooked ribs the way my grandfather had taught me. The house filled with warmth and laughter, the kind I hadn't heard in far too long. After we'd eaten, Warren raised his glass. "To Trevor," he said. "A man who built an empire, survived betrayal, and came out stronger. And to Leora, a woman who faced the worst and didn't break. You two are proof that family isn't just blood. It's loyalty." Everyone clinked glasses. I felt a tightness in my chest ease. The guests left around 10. I walked out onto the porch and pulled my father's pocket watch from my pocket. The old brass was cool and heavy in my hand. I opened it, watched the second hand tick, then looked up at the night sky. Had it been worth it? The revenge, the pain, the destruction I'd caused. I looked through the window into the living room. Leora was standing at the sink, rinsing a dish, talking on the phone and laughing. My daughter. Safe. Free. Whole. Yes, it had been worth it. I thought about Monica then, not with anger, but with a strange, hollow sorrow. I'd loved her for 38 years, but the woman I'd loved had died long before that night I found the receipt. I just hadn't seen it. I stood, slipped the watch back into my pocket, and walked inside. I locked the door behind me and turned off the porch light. Leora was sitting on the couch now, reading a medical textbook, her face calm. I remembered the first time I'd held her 32 years ago, and the promise I'd made to always protect her. I'd kept that promise. Not perfectly, not without cost, but I'd kept it. She looked up and smiled. "Good night, Dad." "Good night, sweetheart," I said. The house settled around us warm and quiet. Outside, the autumn wind rustled through the trees. Inside, the home I'd built with my own hands had become once again a place of safety, and that was enough. So if you've stayed with me this far, here's what I need you to understand. This family story taught me that loyalty isn't given freely. It's earned, tested, and sometimes shattered beyond repair. My dad revenge wasn't just about anger. It was about protecting what I'd built and refusing to let betrayal define me. But the cost was high. Every step toward justice pulled me further from the man I used to be. Looking back, I see where I went wrong. I waited too long. I trusted too much. I let work consume me while my marriage rotted. God knows I'm not proud of the trap I set. But when you're facing conspiracy theft and a plot to end your life, sometimes dad revenge becomes the only option left. Here's my advice: don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs. Don't let pride keep you silent when something feels wrong. This family story didn't have to end in courtrooms and broken hearts. If I'd confronted Monica earlier, chosen honesty over secrecy, maybe this family story would have ended differently. Maybe my dad revenge wouldn't have been necessary at all. Now I want to hear from you. Have you faced betrayal like this? How did you respond? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Quick note: this narrative contains fictionalized elements crafted for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, explore other videos that suit you better. Thank you for walking this road with me. I hope you found something worth remembering.